So we'll move on to some of these interesting reports from Leonard Stringfield. The original reports of Leonard Stringfield cases were stored at MUFON headquarters in London Airport. That's where they originally were stored. Here's the building, and it shows you, because I want to take you and show you what these things actually look like. Here's the file cabinets, and then on this table back in 2013, I was given access to all 65 three-ring binders of the Leonard Stringfield reports, who was the original crash retrieval investigator. He coined the term crash retrieval. I'm going to go over some of his cases here. So this is Wright Patterson Air Force Base, 1963. He was a naval captain at Braniff Airlines, and he said that he saw 2 flying saucers in the hangar at Wright Patterson Air Force Base. One was 30 feet in diameter. The other one was propped up on stilts off the hangar floor. We've got another report from the Stringfield collection of Great Lakes Naval Station. This is back in 1973, where this Marine naval personnel was told to deliver a package. And if you look over to just left of the steeple where you see a clock there, there's a Quonset style. We believe it took place in this facility, which probably was a hangar at the time. So he goes down this corridor, according to the Stringfield report. He makes a left-hand turn, and he sees this thing in a large open area. It's propped up on stilts, and it has a blue coronal discharge along the leading edge of the craft. It's surrounded by military personnel with automatic machine guns, and it looks like a teardrop-shaped craft. It has a rib going on the outer portion, front leading edge of the craft, and it has this polished exterior. This is according to the Leonard Stringfield reports. I'm not making this up. Now, I also want to move on to this case here, which I felt was the most significant case within the Stringfield reports. U.S. Marine encounter. This is December 1963. According to Stringfield, he did interview by telephone a U.S. Marine who claims that in December 1963, this is literally weeks after Kennedy was assassinated on November 22nd, 1963, he boarded a plane with blacked out windows. He flew from Cherry Point, North Carolina, about 2.5 to 3 hours. He landed, he doesn't know to this day where he was. He was never told. Could have been a Navy facility, Air Force facility, we don't know. He gets off the plane. They go into this secure facility, and when the doors open, he sees a 40-foot diameter dish-shaped craft that's about 15 feet tall, looks like a flattened hamburger. It has these elliptical egg-shaped windows going around the outer circumference. There's a 1-inch lip between the exterior of the craft and the exterior wall of these windows. And then it has this fully integrated hatch section that is so fully integrated into the bottom of the craft, you couldn't put a razor blade in between the seam. That's how fully integrated this was. So his job as an MP was to guard this craft. He was there for about 2 weeks, and I've done a rendering here, and you can see that indicate the attempted points of entry. They actually tried to get into this craft. Here is what this gentleman said. Now, his job was to guard the craft. He was there for about 2 weeks. He said that they had built scaffolding and propped this thing on scaffolding, and all around this craft there was a catwalk where you could walk around this thing at eye level. You could walk below it too. He said they initially tried to get into this craft using these diamond tip drill bits. So I'll go back one slide. You can see these red dots. This is where they put these diamond tip drill bits right along the seam here. That didn't work at all. Then they took these air hammers or air jacks that you would see at a construction site along the side of the road. They tried to get into the craft that way. That didn't work. Then he said, according to the Stringfield report, now I spoke to the gentleman who actually interviewed the guy who was the Marine. He said that the third attempt was this big 18-wheeler pulled up, and this is what it looked like inside here. You can see the scaffolding. They had the whole thing propped up. There were these white lab coat technicians that were around these things. He said that an 18-wheeler tractor trailer pulled up and had these cords that went from the trailer, which was a high voltage electrical device that provided power for a laser. And they actually tried to use a laser to get in this thing. This is back in 1963. It would have been crude technology at the time. The only thing that happened is that the laser made the skin of the craft warm to the touch. That's it. It made no breach at all. Now, the last day he was there, he said that he saw this thing being loaded on a lowboy tractor trailer. They put tarps over the craft, and then they put chains over the tarp, and it was being moved to the next location. So it looks like one way they keep this secret and compartmentalized is none of these craft stay at one location for any length of time. They move these to different locations, and that's how they keep this secret. Now, what evidence do we have of any of this here? Interesting testimony from 4-star Major General Melvin F. McNichol, base commander at Tinker Air Force Base. And he spoke to Charlotte Mann, who I talked about earlier, who talked about the Cape Girardeau 1941 crash retriever. Now, listen to what this general told Charlotte Mann. She said, first of all, he said, basically, Charlotte said, "Why aren't you telling me anything about UFOs? Because I know you have an interest and we've been friends for a while now. Why haven't you talked to me about anything about UFOs?" This general turned to Charlotte Mann and said, "Charlotte, if you ever repeat what I'm about to tell you, I'll deny it. It could ruin my career." So this commander, General Melvin F. McNichol of Tinker Air Force Base, he told her, number one, he walked around a UFO that was propped up on scaffolding. Number two, the UFO was located in the west. Number three, bodies were recovered and one was still alive. This is exactly what we heard of basically from this Marine, who also said that this craft was propped up on scaffolding. They built a catwalk around it. It was in the west, so if you fly 3 hours from Cherry Point, North Carolina, and you get within the west, that checks out. The Marine also talked about that bodies were recovered, one was still alive. That's what the Tinker Air Force Base commander said too. So these people, I'm sure, did not know each other. They confirm each other. So it's more evidence that this is actually true. Here's his actual obituary. Ex-Tinker Commander Melvin McNichol dies. This is the Daily Oklahoman, July 11th, 1986. So we've got it from this general that this actually took place. The Marine confirms it. So I asked the question, what did President Kennedy know about UFOs? When did he know it, and who did he tell? Something, he could have been briefed on something that might have been stored at Homestead Air Force Base. Now, this is 73. This is long afterwards. But he could have been briefed on something that was stationed at Homestead Air Force Base, February 19th, 1973. This is the famous case of our good friend and actor Jackie Gleason. And he was friends with Richard Nixon. This is famous and really legendary at the time. This has gone down within ufology as one of these legendary cases. Now, this part of the story is true. They did go to a fundraising charity event, this golf event back on February 19, 1973. So here you see Jackie Gleason, Richard Nixon. He's got his ever-present suit and the carnation there. Now, somewhere around the 9th hole, as the story goes, the subject of UFOs came up. And Jackie Gleason had a huge interest in UFOs. And he turned to Richard Nixon and said, "Mr. Nixon, Mr. President, can you tell me anything about UFOs? I mean, I have a real serious interest here." And Richard Nixon says, "Well, if you can be available later tonight, I might be able to help you with that." That's what the story goes. At this point, 12 midnight, Richard Nixon shows up in his own car without the Secret Service, alone. There's a knock on Jackie Gleason's door. Jackie gets up, opens it up. He sees Richard Nixon right in the doorway. He's shocked. Jackie Gleason gets in Richard Nixon's car. They drive to Homestead Air Force Base. When they get to Homestead Air Force Base, they're escorted to a secure facility where, according to Jackie Gleason, there are 6 vintage Coke freezers set up. Inside each Coke freezer, there is a dead alien corpse that is badly mangled, burned, and it looks childlike, maybe 3.5 to 4 feet tall. This is according to Jackie Gleason. He looks inside one of these Coke freezers, and this is what he sees inside. He sees this burned remnants of a crash retrieval. A body is there. They look young, so they're childlike. And according to his ex-wife, Beverly McKittrick, he gets home early in the morning the next day. He plops down on the couch, and he's a changed man. He's an absolute changed man. He said this to one other person and then never said it again after that point. I don't think any other researchers got to him to confirm the story, but this is all according to Jackie Gleason.